What would happen if the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs struck today?
All the plant life, gone. All the animals, gone. All the humans, gone. The buildings, gone. Everything, gone.
Small impacts are happening all the time.
About once a year, there's an event in the upper atmosphere about the level of an atomic bomb.
Can technology save us? Or are we destined to suffer the same fate as the dinosaurs?
We're going to be living that kind of Mad Max existence.
Most of us can't exist in a Stone Age setting anymore. I certainly couldn't.
Will mankind survive the next mass extinction? On Animal Armageddon. The voice of the dead sound like a distant torrent's fall. Lord Byron, 1821. Imagine coming home one night, turning your television on, and seeing this on the evening news.
Scientists estimate the asteroid to be 6 miles in diameter. That's roughly the same estimate.
To be 6 miles wide, with a 99% probability of striking the Earth. If and when...
A flood of refugees is evacuating the East Coast tonight.
This may seem like science fiction, but one day it will be real. Our solar system is swarming with asteroids. As recently as March 2009, we narrowly missed getting hit by a 200-foot-wide killer. That's big enough to cause an explosion equivalent to a thermonuclear bomb.
Most of them are well behaved, but they get perturbed by the gravity of big planets, especially Jupiter, and in our case become Earth-crossing, and some hit us.
The scars are all around us. 800 square miles of forest, leveled by an impact in Siberia in 1908. In Arizona, a meteor crater from an impact 50,000 years ago. And in Mexico, a massive crater from a catastrophic impact 65 million years ago that destroyed the kingdom of the dinosaurs in less than 12 months. Scientists call this impact the KT mass extinction.
We now know that the asteroid hit in the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. There's a 100-mile diameter crater there. It blew up a huge dust cloud, threw material up into space, and it came back down at incredible velocity.
The discovery of this impact in 1980 completely changed the way scientists view our world.
This is an example of one of these paradigm changes where how we look at how the world works radically changes. That infiltrated not just through science, but into culture. Deep Impact, Armageddon, both of these grew out of conferences, some of which I went to, where representatives went, listened, saw what it did to the past world, and said, what happens if it hits our world? How do we deal with it?
Would the human race be destroyed if the same thing happened? Would any trace of our civilization be left behind? We know it will happen sometime. It is inescapable. In the not-too-distant future, an asteroid is detected moving across the night sky. At first, it is simply named and catalogued, alongside the thousands of other asteroids in our solar system. But once the asteroid's path is predicted, a grim realization spreads among the scientific community. The asteroid is headed for Earth. The knowledge is kept secret at first, as scientists make more accurate observations of the asteroid's orbit. But soon, the news breaks. Over the next several days, all of mankind learns that the entirety of life on Earth, "2 million species," all of this could be gone in an instant.
Well, the prediction that we will be hit and that it's not a false alarm is going to be very much equivalent to the very stages that one goes through when told that you have a fatal disease and you only have X months to live. I mean, we go through these many stages of denial and anger, and sooner or later, perhaps acceptance.
Unlike humans, the dinosaurs lacked the intelligence to know what was going to happen to them, so they couldn't prepare for it. But we can. Science provides a detailed understanding of everything that's coming.
We can actually estimate the average number of people per event that would die, and based on that, we can estimate what we would need to do about it. How many resources should we spend on this problem? How does it compare to other risks?
But will that give us the edge to survive? In the KT extinction, the survivors were small, with an ability to burrow into the mud to wait out the storm. To survive this modern-day asteroid apocalypse, mankind will have to do the same. A massive effort is launched to build fortified bunkers deep underground.
During the Cold War, there were lots and lots of civil defense shelters that were built to protect people from nuclear bombs. And these sorts of things are probably going to be put into place everywhere. And there's going to be some hard decisions that are going to have to be made about how many people can be saved and how much they can bring with them. Those people that go underground are going to need food and water for a long time.
How are you going to have temporary housing for billions of people? How are you going to get food and sanitation? We're going to have to mobilize in a way that's obviously never been done, but maybe it's impossible to do.
Scientists determine that the enemy originated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. A deep space collision kicked it our way. The rock itself is nearly 6 miles wide, the same estimated size of the asteroid that killed off the dinosaurs. As reality sinks in, families across the world prepare in their own unique way. Breaking the news to children and loved ones is difficult. You'd think we'd have the technology to change the asteroid's course or blow it up in outer space. But as of now, that's still the stuff of movies. This is an enemy that can't be conquered. With 7 months left, scientists try to pinpoint the exact site.
There's always uncertainty in measurements. Astronomers don't have perfect resolution, So there's a little bit of uncertainty. So one strategy that's been suggested is to actually put a transponder on the asteroid, an instrument that's kind of like GPS that can tell us exactly where it is, and that would actually reduce the uncertainty.
A NASA transponder is launched. After a complex rendezvous with the speeding asteroid, it touches down. Using solar panels for energy, the transponder begins beaming its coordinates back to Earth. A precise measurement of the asteroid's path is plotted. The target is one of the most heavily populated areas in the world, New York City. In the months leading up to the impact, government agencies work furiously to evacuate the eastern seaboard of the United States. There are over 150 million people living on or near the coast. All of them must be moved west. Horrendous traffic jams snarl every roadway leading inland for months on end. The logistics are a nightmare. How do you prepare for the end of life as we know it? The final week before the asteroid impact arrives, the mood around the world is increasingly schizophrenic. In some major cities, protesters take to the streets, charging that the world's governments aren't doing enough to avert the disaster. Others, resigned to death, try to enjoy a peaceful final week of their lives. But no one can escape the doomsday clock, steadily ticking down to oblivion. Government-built underground bunkers offer protection to many. Thousands are built in the months leading up to impact. Scientists theorize the dinosaurs died off in the span of 1 year. Humans taking shelter underground must be prepared to remain there for at least that long. The final hours and minutes wind down. The asteroid, a 6-mile-wide killer flying 10 times faster than a bullet, covers the last stretch in the blink of an eye. In an instant, everything changes.
It would be blinding when an asteroid comes into the Earth's atmosphere. It is coming so fast that it lights up brighter than the sun.
This enormous wall of superheated air and rock material. That's the most dangerous aspect of this thing, is this big heat pulse coming out that will burn any flesh, any material, any tree, any building, just obliterated on the way out.
New York City is completely annihilated. The collision is so violent that in 2 seconds, the 5 boroughs are pounded into a hole 40 miles deep. All of this rock and debris, crushed and heated by the violent collision, explodes with the energy of 100 million hydrogen bombs.
All this debris that's being launched out of the crater, that's also moving through the atmosphere at such high speeds that it's glowing, and it's glowing very brightly and incandescently.
Beneath the colossal mushroom cloud, a new killer speeds outward from ground zero. A shockwave of vaporized rock. The same thing happened when the asteroid hit the Yucatan 65 million years ago. Scientists believe a wall of superheated rock vapor rushed to the northwest following the impact. Any living animal caught in the open, including the dinosaurs, were burned alive. Now everything within a 500-mile radius of New York is demolished by this shockwave. The 2,000-degree wall of flame rips through the countryside twice as fast as a tornado. Almost everything in its path is completely obliterated.
You have a much better chance if you can be in not straight line from this thing, because this wave of energy is just going to hug the ground and go over it. It might be pushed up over a hill, and underneath it you might be able to survive underneath this thing. But flat line of sight between you and that impact is a dead zone.
It will take 1 hour for the shockwave to cool and dissipate. But there will be no respite. A disastrous ripple effect is already sweeping the globe. It's just 1 minute after impact. Another beautiful sunset for those on the other side of the world in Asia and Australia. But everyone on the surface world is doomed to become a casualty in this all-out war on humanity. Back in the northeast United States, just behind the shockwave, an immense earthquake spreads outward, rumbling through the Earth's crust in all directions.
An impact of this scale is so energetic, a compression wave would go all the way through the Earth and would cause a lot of ground motion. It would cause basically what would appear to be a global earthquake. So the entire surface of the Earth would be shaking.
It is believed the asteroid in the dinosaurs' time generated a magnitude 13 earthquake. But since there were no structures to be toppled, the shaking would have been terrifying, but not particularly lethal. In this modern-day disaster, older buildings all over the world topple to the ground, causing mass death and casualties. Only modern construction techniques ensure some remain standing. For the world outside the northeastern US, this earthquake is the first great challenge to their survival. Within an hour, no place is untouched by the impact. The entire northeast United States is shrouded in the most colossal mushroom cloud the Earth has ever known. And it's still just the beginning. The deadliest episode of the dinosaur extinction wasn't the initial explosion. It was the chain reaction that followed. Those who survived the asteroid impact will soon face the rain of fire. Currently, scientists have catalogued over 6,000 NEOs, or near-Earth objects. These are asteroids whose movements throughout the solar system cross Earth's orbit. So how do scientists locate these potentially deadly asteroids? They depend on two very important things: a good telescope and a lot of patience.
There's an array of telescopes around the world with a lot of them are automated, and astronomers are constantly scanning the sky. And asteroids tend to be very dim, but they're actually moving objects. And so if you take two pictures of the same part of the sky and then compare the pictures, the object that's moving relative to the stars is something that's probably orbiting.
These astronomers are the first line of defense when it comes to a possible catastrophic asteroid impact on Earth. It's the world's worst nightmare come true. The same catastrophe that annihilated the dinosaurs has happened to us. It seems like the world is on life support. There's no guarantee that anyone will make it. Hours after an asteroid the size of Mount Everest slams into New York City, millions are dead.
The plants, the animals, everything goes on the eastern seaboard. You just take an eraser, we're going to erase the eastern seaboard. All the plant life, gone. All the animals, gone. All the humans, gone. The buildings, gone. The roads, the airports, the railroads, everything, gone.
Adding to the destruction in North America are airbursts. Chunks of rock debris moving so fast through the atmosphere that they explode.
The aerodynamic forces on them actually exceeds their strength. They start to fall apart, and because they're moving so fast, they explode in the atmosphere.
Scientists knew such airbursts would occur based on investigation of a similar event over Tunguska, Siberia in 1908.
There was a big explosion in the size of a large nuclear explosion. It created a shock wave that blew down trees over an area of something like 800 square miles. And we've been modeling that, trying to understand the physics behind how that happened. And I think that a large impact would create lots of secondary impacts.
4 hours after the impact, the destruction of New York and the surrounding countryside pales in comparison to what is about to happen.
Think of the amount of rock, 120 miles, a cavity, a mile deep. That amount of material gets thrown up in space. All of it, from large rock size to dust particles.
Trillions upon trillions of fiery rocks and debris fall to Earth. A global firestorm that superheats the air like an oven. "65 million years ago, scientists estimate temperatures may have risen 500 to 1,000 degrees in a matter of hours. Forests burned to the ground. Fire was everywhere. It was the most destructive episode of the dinosaur extinction.
The entire Earth's forests are thought to have burned at the end of the Cretaceous. That's what we have to look forward to. Burn down North America from stem to stern, from west to east, east to west, it's gone.
All the power plants burn, the coal refineries burn. There's no gasoline anymore. Your entire infrastructure, all the cities are burned down.
6 hours after impact, much of the world is an inferno. The monuments of our civilization are incinerated. What took thousands of years to create, wiped out in just hours. No human on the surface can survive.
If it's the size of the KT dinosaur killer, you got to be underground. There's no building a brick house. You're not going to be like the Three Little Pigs and hope even the brick one's going to keep that big bad wolf out. You got to be underground. It's got to be subterranean.
The ideal shelter in the event of an asteroid impact is not unlike a bomb shelter built during the Cold War. It must be deep underground, 10 feet or so below the surface. It must have its own power source and water supply. Air must be filtered from the outside, and an effective sanitation system is key. Without realizing it, the survivors underground are doing just what their mammalian ancestors did 65 million years ago. At that time, early mammals, most the size of small rodents, took shelter in burrow holes, caves, or any other small protected space. The same strategy protects us in this modern-day apocalypse. Survivors locked away underground are safe, but for how long? Eight hours after impact, the great wildlife sanctuaries are consumed in flames. Millions of acres and millions of animals are swallowed in fires of biblical proportions. And as with the catastrophe that killed the dinosaurs, the bigger you are, the worse your fate.
One of the things that we know from the KT extinction is that nothing on land that was more than, say, 10 or 20 pounds survived. The big animals that require lots of energy. In the KT, it was dinosaurs. This time around, it would be big mammals.
All of those large species already on the verge of extinction are now lost. Forever.
Think about elephants. Elephants are pregnant for 2 years to give birth to a single calf. They have a really hard time building back up from anything that decreases their numbers.
The world burns for days on end, leaving a charred and blackened landscape behind. With so much smoke, soot, and debris in the air, the life-giving rays of the sun are blocked. Now the lights go out on planet Earth. Night, the shadow of light, and life, the shadow of death. Algernon Swinburne, 1865. Could humanity survive the killer asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs? 7 days after impact, the answer is still very much in doubt. A remnant of humanity is secure in underground bunkers. But for months to come, the surface world will be shrouded in darkness. It may prove enough to starve the human race into oblivion. That's what happened 65 million years ago. Billions of dinosaurs died in the fires of impact. But extinction, the eradication of every individual in a species, most likely came when food sources on the surface completely disappeared in the darkness. Ultimately, the dinosaurs starved to death. Our intelligence and ability to plan for the disaster will help us avoid this fate. But it's not without challenges.
It's one thing to think about going down in your basement overnight to dodge a tornado, for example. It's a very different thing to think about living underground in a bunker or a cave for a month or a period of months. That requires fantastic resources in terms of food, water, sanitation, medical care.
While the remnant of humanity eke out a meager existence underground, the surface world as we knew it dies. One month after impact, Earth is a ghost world that continues changing in the darkness.
The most challenging and noticeable changes will come from the atmosphere and the ocean. Because of differential heat now hitting the Earth compared to prior to, the ocean current systems will absolutely change.
Weather is incredibly severe and completely unpredictable. Some places are buried by raging blizzards. Others suffer torrential downpours that last for days.
Where there wasn't a monsoon, now there's a monsoon. Where it used to have a lot of rain, no rain. Where it used to have no rain, a lot of rain. Some deserts are going to bloom. Some rainforests are going to dry up. And the trouble is, it keeps changing.
But finally, the smoke clears. 12 months after impact, the sun peeks out of the clouds. 65 million years ago, the sun returned to a world without dinosaurs. All of them dead in less than a year. Luckily, most scientists believe that if the same impact struck our world, some portion of humanity would survive the year-long period of darkness. In nearly every case, it was underground bunkers that made the difference. Survivors would emerge to a surface world completely shattered by the impact and its aftermath. The world's cities are gone. There's no electricity, no telephones or radio. Cars are useless. Electronics, nothing more than garbage. Humanity has been bombed back to the Stone Age.
We're going to be living that kind of Mad Max existence. You're going to have to dig down and get those cans of dog food or whatever it takes to get.
If mankind manages to avoid extinction during a future impact, that just means that we survived. It doesn't mean necessarily that we survived with high technology.
Those people suited to this world are not necessarily those that were most prosperous before.
We like to think of the survivors as being someone from a big city who went down into a bunker outside of Chicago or New York or Paris or someplace like that. It's probably much more likely that it'll be a few people that may be very far from the actual impact itself, people that are already living a low-tech lifestyle that won't have to adapt to living without high technology because they haven't been living with it all along.
By going underground, mankind has managed to survive the darkest days of Armageddon. But there are very few of us left, and there is no clear path to survival in this harsh, alien world. With so much empty space for life to inhabit, we should also consider what animals would benefit the most from this type of disaster. 65 million years ago, mammals flourished in the time after the asteroid impact. As with all life events, while one suffers, another is empowered. Perhaps now, an entirely new set of species will evolve to take advantage of the fall of human civilization. I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men lost their bones. T.S. Eliot, 1922. When the dinosaurs were wiped out by an asteroid impact, our ancient ancestors took advantage and slowly repopulated the world. It was the dawn of the age of mammals. Now, thousands of years after another asteroid assaults planet Earth, displacing humans at the top of the food chain, what species would fill the void until humans can rebuild? The ruined cities, abandoned by man, may become an important habitat,
We see them basically becoming covered in vines and trees and taken over by the animals that are in cities already.
A number of organisms may even evolve specific abilities to live in these unusual places. Evolution can do strange things. It's certainly impossible to predict, but lots of strange things could happen in those hulks of the old cities.
As with the dinosaur extinction and virtually all mass extinctions, insects are quick to rebound. One species would be particularly common in cities: cockroaches. Cockroaches first evolved 350 million years ago. They've survived 4 major mass extinctions. There is no reason to think they're going down this time. To the contrary, with plenty of detritus to eat and less competition, they evolve into giants. The largest cockroaches in our time are just 1 to 2 inches long. These roaches can be a foot long or more, but still they can't quite take over.
Insects have had this chance many times in the past. After the KT, a lot of insects survive, but they don't become the dominant animals on the planet. Insect body plan, the very nature of the stuff that makes up their skeleton, limits them in size. You don't have any 10-foot sized insects. They would collapse under their own weight.
As in the past, they have a more important role to play. Food for larger animals. 65 million years ago, insects were a key food source for rodent-like animals, some of which eventually evolved into us. We can expect something similar in this modern-day disaster.
So what do you know? We have this huge, horrible event. It takes out all the iconic, big, wonderful mammals, and what are we left with? The rats. Wouldn't you know, it's the darn rats. Rodents are well suited for rapid evolution, and after a big impact, that's what you want. You want to be able to evolve quickly, because there's lots of niches that are now open.
In the post-impact period, rats could grow very large, some the size of dogs. But a flourishing rodent population would inevitably attract predators of its own. Birds famously survived the KT extinction, the only dinosaur lineage to make it through. Their size, diversity, and eating habits would help them survive this impact as well. The empty cities are a plentiful hunting ground for them.
A city is a complex three-dimensional environment. You can imagine them as sort of like mechanical equivalents of forests and canyons. And the things that tend to do well there are things that are good at moving in 3 dimensions. So I'd imagine that in the empty cities of the post-impact future, falcons might become the top predators because they could see everything moving on the ground.
The falcons stalk the supersized rats from above. While humans slowly rebuild their population, insects, rodents, and birds would enjoy a short period of prosperity.
If it's a KT-level event, probably humanity is going to be knocked back to just a handful or maybe even one little pocket of people someplace. And that as they start to recolonize the globe, their numbers are not going to be very big.
But eventually, mankind would rebuild itself. It's impossible to predict what their lives would be like, but almost certainly they would wonder one thing. Was there anything their ancestors could have done to prevent Armageddon? Awake, arise, or be forever fallen. John Milton, 1667. Since the 1980s, scientists have investigated the disaster that wiped out the dinosaurs. The devastating effects on our planet are well known. This research was important, as we know this will happen again sometime in the future. And so the search began for killer asteroids in our celestial neighborhood.
The number of known asteroids keeps increasing, not because there's more asteroids than we thought, but because we've had more time to look. None of the asteroids that have been found to date are on impact trajectories, but as you might expect, there are a lot that are whizzing by as near misses. Most notably, there's an asteroid called Apophis, which is going to come very close to the Earth in the year 2029. So that's one that NASA is keeping a very close eye on.
There are two main strategies for averting an impact: destroy the asteroid or move it out of the way. But destroying the asteroid with nuclear weapons was quickly dismissed.
Probably the last thing we want to do is blow it up. So you've got a billion-ton asteroid headed your way, and you blow it apart, now you've got a billion tons of asteroid pieces still coming your way.
So if you break a big asteroid into 1 million fragments, you're going to have 1 million nuclear explosions all over the atmosphere of the Earth. Is that better or is that worse? I don't know.
Pushing the asteroid out of the way is the only viable option. Ironically, nuclear weapons could be used for this too. Detonating a warhead near the asteroid might be enough to nudge it off course.
It would eject a mass in one direction and push the main mass of the asteroid in the opposite direction.
A similar technique employs a kinetic impactor, just a large hunk of metal sent on a collision course with the asteroid.
It's a very small force, but if you put that small force on it well enough in advance, you can change the trajectory enough to miss the Earth. You throw a mass at it and create a crater. The crater on the asteroid ejects material and pushes the asteroid in the opposite direction.
A more elegant method is the use of a gravity tractor, a spacecraft sent out to rendezvous with the asteroid. Incredibly, its own gravity might be enough to gently tug the asteroid off course.
You have to have a propulsion system on that mass, but you don't actually have to tether it. It's gravity that is tethering your mass to the asteroid, and you very, very gradually change its course by pulling on it very, very slowly, but it takes years.
But all of these diversion tactics are dependent on one thing: time. It would take at least 20 years for even the most promising strategies to work.
It's sort of like when you're in your car driving down the freeway. If you can see a problem coming a long way in advance, a slight twist of the steering wheel is all you need. If something happens right in front of you, you really have to swerve. Same problem with the asteroid. We don't want to have to swerve the asteroid.
Intelligence is our greatest advantage. It allows us to predict when devastating disasters might overtake our planet and gives us time to prepare. The dinosaurs had no such advantage. If an asteroid is headed our way, will we at some point in the future be driven to extinction like the dinosaurs? Only time will tell.